If you've ever thought your family was complicated, let me tell you about the night my entire world flipped, at my own birthday party, no less. I always thought birthdays were supposed to be about celebration, laughter, maybe a little bit of drama if your uncle had too much wine. But this year, my birthday dinner became the stage for a secret that would unravel everything I thought I knew about my family and about myself. It started out like any other family gathering. The restaurant was buzzing with the low hum of conversation, the clink of glasses, and the occasional burst of laughter from the table next to ours. I'd chosen a cozy cafe downtown, the kind with exposed brick walls and string lights that made even the most awkward family moments feel a little more magical. My mom, ever the perfectionist, had insisted on arriving early to make sure everything was just right. My dad, on the other hand, was already grumbling about parking before he even got out of the car. My brother, Nathan, and his wife, Julia, showed up fashionably late, as always, with apologies and hugs that felt just a little too rehearsed. I tried to tell myself that this year would be different. That maybe, just maybe, my mom would let me have the spotlight for once. That she wouldn't turn my birthday into another one of her strategy sessions, where every conversation was a chess move and every compliment had a hidden agenda. But as soon as we sat down, I could feel the tension simmering beneath the surface, like a pot about to boil over. The appetizers arrived, and for a moment, it almost felt normal. My aunt was telling a story about her new puppy. My cousin was scrolling through photos on her phone, and my dad was already eyeing the dessert menu. But then, as I was reaching for a piece of bread, I caught my mom leaning in toward my dad, her voice barely above a whisper. I couldn't make out the words, but the look on her face was enough to make my stomach twist. She glanced at Nathan, then back at my dad, and suddenly the air felt heavier, like the room had shrunk around us. I tried to shake it off. Maybe she was just reminding him to tip the waiter, or asking if he'd remembered to bring my gift. But then Nathan's phone buzzed, and he excused himself from the table, his expression unreadable. He was gone for almost an hour. When he finally returned, he looked pale, almost ghostly, and he wouldn't meet my eyes. My mom's lips pressed into a thin line, and she asked, "Well, did you do it?" Nathan just nodded, his hand shaking as he reached for his water glass. That's when I knew something was wrong. Really wrong. I tried to focus on the cake, on the candles, on the chorus of "Happy Birthday" that felt more like a funeral dirge than a celebration. But my mind kept replaying that whispered conversation. The way my mom's eyes had darted around the table. The way Nathan had disappeared without a word. I blew out the candles, made a wish I couldn't even remember, and tried to smile as everyone clapped and cheered. But then, just as I was about to cut the first slice, my phone buzzed. An unknown number flashed on the screen, and for a split second I considered ignoring it, but something in my gut told me to answer. I stepped away from the table, my heart pounding in my chest, and pressed the phone to my ear. "Hello?" I whispered, my voice barely steady. "Ms. Reeves? This is Officer Grant from the Portland Police Department. We need you to contact us immediately regarding your apartment." The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. My apartment? What could have possibly happened? I glanced back at the table, where my family was still laughing and chatting as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I could feel it in my bones. I grabbed my purse, muttered something about needing fresh air, and slipped out the door before anyone could stop me. The night air was cold and sharp, stinging my cheeks as I hurried to my car. My hands shook as I fumbled with the keys, my mind racing with questions I couldn't answer. What had Nathan done? What had my mom whispered to him? And why did I have this sinking feeling that I was about to find out? The drive to my apartment felt like it took hours, even though it was only 15 minutes. Every red light, every slow driver, every turn felt like an eternity. When I finally pulled up to my building, my heart dropped. 2 police cars were parked outside, their lights casting eerie red and blue shadows across the brick walls. Yellow tape stretched across the entrance to my floor, and a uniformed officer stood guard by the door. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, and approached the officer. "I'm Lauren Reeves," I said, my voice trembling. "This is my apartment." He nodded, checking his clipboard. "We received a report of a break-in. Your door was forced open, but nothing appears to be stolen. We're still investigating," A break-in. My mind reeled. Who would break into my apartment, and why? The officer led me upstairs, past the police tape, and into my apartment. The door hung crooked on its hinges, the lock splintered and broken. Inside, everything looked almost untouched, except for one thing. Every framed photo of me and my son, Liam, had been flipped face down. On the coffee table, a single envelope sat, stark and out of place. I picked it up, my hands shaking, and opened it. Inside was a printed message. "Tell your mother the truth always finds its way home." My blood ran cold. The words were simple, but the meaning was clear. This wasn't just a break-in. It was a message, and it was meant for my mother. I turned to the officer, my voice barely above a whisper. "Do you have any idea who did this?" He shook his head. "We're reviewing the building's security footage. Do you know anyone who might have access to your keys?" I hesitated, the truth heavy on my tongue. "My brother, Nathan Reeves. He was supposed to change my locks tonight." The officer's eyes narrowed. "And why would your brother need to change your locks?" I swallowed hard, the pieces finally starting to fall into place. "Because my mother told him to." The officer's pen paused midair, his gaze sharpening as he looked at me. "Your mother told your brother to change your locks tonight? Without your consent?" I nodded, feeling the weight of the moment settle on my shoulders. "She whispered it to him at my birthday dinner. I heard her. I just didn't know why." He exchanged a glance with his partner, then motioned for me to sit down on the edge of my couch, the only place in the room that didn't feel violated. The envelope still trembled in my hands. "Ms. Reeves, we're going to need a full statement from you," he said gently. "But first, is there anything in your apartment that someone might want? Anything valuable or sensitive?" I shook my head, but the question lingered. What could possibly be so important that my mother would orchestrate a lock change behind my back? What was she so desperate to keep hidden or to find? As the officers moved through my apartment, dusting for prints and snapping photos, I sat in a daze, replaying every moment of the dinner. My mother's tight smile, Nathan's nervous glances, the way my father had avoided my eyes. It was all connected, I realized. This wasn't just about a lock. It was about control, about secrets. My phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Nathan. "I'm sorry. I didn't know." I stared at the screen, my anger and confusion warring inside me. What didn't he know? What had he seen when he came here? Before I could reply, Officer Grant returned, his expression unreadable. "We found something," he said, holding up a small plastic evidence bag. Inside was a key, one I didn't recognize. "Do you know whose this is?" I shook my head. "No, that's not mine." He nodded, making a note. "We'll run it for prints. In the meantime, is there anyone else who might have a copy of your key? Maintenance landlord, anyone?" I hesitated. "My landlord's nephew, Thomas. He handles repairs sometimes, but he's never had a reason to come in without me." Grant's eyes narrowed. "We'll need his contact information." As I scrolled through my phone for Thomas's number, a cold realization crept over me. My mother had always been meticulous about security, about knowing who had access to what. If she wanted the locks changed, it wasn't just about keeping someone out. It was about keeping something in. The officers finished their sweep, promising to update me as soon as they had more information. I watched them leave, the apartment suddenly feeling cavernous and empty. I sat on the floor, surrounded by the flipped photos, the broken door, the echo of my mother's voice in my head. "Tell your mother the truth always finds its way home." I picked up one of the photos, turning it over. It was a picture of me and Liam at the park, both of us grinning, sunlight in our hair. I traced the outline of our faces, wondering what kind of truth could be so dangerous that it needed to be hidden, even from me. The next morning, I woke to a string of missed calls from my mother. No voicemails, just her number flashing over and over. I ignored them, my resolve hardening. If she wanted to talk, she could do it face to face. Instead, I called Officer Grant. "Any news?" He sounded tired. "We ran the prints on the key. They don't match your brother or you. But we did get a hit, Thomas Hale, your landlord's nephew. He's currently in custody for a series of unlawful entries in the building." My heart pounded. "So he broke in?" Yes, but there's more. We found surveillance footage. He used a key copy to enter your apartment last night. He didn't take anything, but he left that envelope. I gripped the phone tighter. Why would he do that? We're still investigating. But there's something else. We traced a payment to Thomas's account last week. An anonymous bank transfer. It came from an account under your mother's name. The world seemed to tilt. My mother had paid Thomas to break into my apartment. I sat in stunned silence, the pieces finally snapping together. The lock change, the secret message, the envelope. My mother wasn't just trying to protect me. She was trying to protect herself. I thanked Officer Grant and hung up, my mind racing. What was in my apartment that she needed so badly? What was she so afraid I'd find? I thought back to the box I'd found in the attic last month, labeled Dad's business papers. Inside were property deeds, old tax forms, documents I hadn't understood but had tucked away for safekeeping. I hadn't told anyone about them. Suddenly it all made sense. My mother was trying to retrieve those papers before I could. She was willing to break the law, to risk everything, just to keep her secrets buried. I stared at my phone, her missed calls still blinking. For the first time, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was angry. I texted her, "Dinner, my place. 7 p.m. No games." Her reply came instantly. "Fine, but you'd better be ready for the truth." I was. At exactly 7 p.m., I heard the knock. It was light, almost polite, but I knew better than to expect anything gentle from my mother. I opened the door to find her standing there, perfectly composed, her hair and makeup flawless, her eyes sharp and searching. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, her perfume trailing behind her like a warning. "Lauren," she said, her voice cool, "you shouldn't have involved the police." I closed the door and leaned against it, arms folded. "You shouldn't have sent someone to break into my apartment." She set her purse on the table, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Watch your tone. You don't understand what's going on." "Then explain it," I said, motioning to the couch. "Because I'm done playing along." She sat, crossing her legs with the same precision she used to cut people out of her life. For a moment, she just looked at me, as if weighing how much truth I could handle. "Your father's business dealings weren't simple. Those papers you found, they don't belong to you. Thomas was supposed to retrieve them quietly before you did something stupid." I stared at her, stunned. "You hired someone to break in rather than just talk to me?" Her voice softened, but I recognized the manipulation. "I was protecting you. There are things you don't need to know." I shook my head. "You've been protecting lies, not me." Her mask slipped for a second, her eyes flashing. "You think you're smarter than us, Lauren? You have no idea what those documents could expose. Your father could lose everything." I let the silence stretch, then pulled out my phone and tapped the record button. "You mean the undeclared properties? The offshore accounts listed under my social security number?" Her eyes widened, her composure cracking. What have you done?" "I learned how to stop being your pawn," I said quietly. She stood abruptly, her heels clicking on the floor. "You wouldn't dare ruin this family." I met her glare evenly. "You already did, Mom. The only difference is, I'm not covering for it anymore." Her face hardened into something cold and unfamiliar. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," I said, "but at least it'll be my regret." Thunder rumbled outside, the storm growing heavier, lightning flashing against the windows. My mother paced in front of me, her movements sharp and restless. "You don't understand what's at stake, Lauren. If those documents go public, your father could face prison time. The entire family's reputation was already destroyed," I cut in. "When you put my name on fake property deeds to hide your assets." She went still, the silence between us stretching taut. I continued, my voice steady. "I found everything. Transfers under my ID, signatures that aren't mine, even emails to Thomas. You didn't just drag me into your lies, Mom. You built them on me." For the first time, her voice cracked. "You were supposed to trust us. I did. For 29 years. And all it got me was debt, therapy, and a lock changed by your son." She flinched, her shoulders slumping. "You wouldn't go to the police." "You're not that cruel." I looked her dead in the eyes. "You broke into my home, forged my name, and put my child at risk." "What would you call that?" She looked away, her hands twisting in her lap. We did it to protect the family. No, I said softly. You did it to protect your image. She stood, gathering her purse, her face a mask of anger and fear. If you go through with this, you'll never have a family again. I met her gaze, unflinching. Then maybe it's time I build one worth having. She left without another word, the door closing behind her with a hollow finality. The storm outside raged, but for the first time I felt calm. I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I drove straight to the Financial Crimes Division, the folder of evidence on the seat beside me. Officer Grant met me in the lobby, his expression serious. You're sure about this? I'm done being their cover story, I said, handing him the file. Inside were the deeds, the wire confirmations, and screenshots of every message that proved my parents had used my identity to hide money from federal audits. Years of deception, condensed into neat paper stacks. He flipped through the documents, nodding. This is airtight. Once this goes through, they'll open a full investigation. You'll be cleared of all liability. I exhaled, the weight in my chest finally loosening. Good. I've spent too long carrying their mistakes. That afternoon, I turned off my phone and picked up Liam from his appointment. He ran into my arms, holding a gold star sticker. Mom, I got a gold star. I laughed, hugging him tight. So did I, baby. You just can't see mine yet. When we got home, I typed one final email to my mother. The files have been turned in. Please stop contacting me. If you need a lawyer, I recommend the same one who told me to protect myself. I hit send and closed the laptop. No trembling, no guilt, just clean silence. That night, while Liam slept, I stood by the window, watching the city lights flicker. They'd built a world on lies. I'd learned to live without them, and that finally felt like justice. A month later, the investigation became public. News outlets ran headlines. Local couple under federal review for identity fraud. Daughter reported as victim. I didn't watch the coverage. I didn't need to. I'd already lived the headline. The bank seized their hidden accounts. My father resigned from his company in disgrace. My mother stopped calling. Not out of respect, but out of shame. For once, her silence wasn't punishment. It was peace. Officer Grant called to update me. The case will go to court soon. You've been cleared entirely. You did the right thing, Ms. Reeves. I thanked him, then looked at Liam playing on the floor, his toy cars lined up in perfect rows. He didn't know the details, but he knew what mattered. His mother wasn't afraid anymore. That night, I hosted a small dinner at home. Just a few friends who'd stood by me through everything. We toasted not to revenge, but to freedom. To starting over, said my friend Nana. I smiled. And to never apologizing for protecting yourself. After everyone left, I tucked Liam into bed and stood for a long moment by the window. The city lights below looked softer now, like forgiveness spread across glass. I thought of my parents, not with anger, but with clarity. They taught me the most brutal lesson. Love without boundaries becomes a weapon. The next morning, I mailed a single envelope to the district attorney's office. The last missing document linking their offshore account. No note, no explanation, just truth. When I sealed it, I whispered, "This ends here." Then I turned to Liam, smiling. "Ready for breakfast, champ?" He grinned. "Can we have pancakes?" "Always," I said. And just like that, life moved forward.